Little Lunch, The Dress-Up Day by Katz Mitch Vane. Today was Dress Up As You Want to Be When You Grow Up Day. Tamara Noodle came to school dressed as a world champion athlete. She wore a green and gold tracksuit top and green and gold tracksuit bottoms. She also wore her dad's watch on her wrist because not only did she want to be a world champion athlete, she wanted to be a world champion athlete who had a sponsorship deal with a watch company. Atticus loved food, so he came to school dressed in a chef's outfit. He had a big white chef's hat and a white button-up chef's coat, and he drew a little curly moustache on his face. The moustache had nothing to do with being a chef, of course. He just planned on growing a moustache one day, and he wanted to see quite how it looked. Deborah Jo always dreamed that one day she'd be a lawyer or the principal of an art school. These were boring costumes, so she borrowed her mum's surgical scrubs and came to school dressed as a doctor instead. A doctor who hates the sight of blood and would much rather be a lawyer or the principal of an art school. Melanie loved animals, so she decided to dress up as a vet. But she didn't know what kind of uniform a vet wears, so she threw on an old kitchen apron and hoped for the best. That made her look like a waitress, so she panicked and brought her dog Rudy to school with her as well. That didn't help either, because dogs were not allowed in the school grounds. So Rudy had to be tied up outside, and Melanie spent the day looking like a waitress. Rory completely forgot it was Dress Up As You Want to Be When You Grow Up Day. He only realised when he arrived at school gates and saw everyone else dressed up. So he quickly borrowed the Lollipop Man's white crossing coat and spiked up his hair with a little bit of spit. When he walked into school, Atticus said, "Hey Rory, are you a scientist?" And Rory said, "Oh, yeah, okay, then I'm a scientist, yep." Batty came to school dressed as a stretcho, a superhero he made up with his own imagination. He knew he wasn't going to be a superhero when he grew up, of course, but he liked to dress up as one. He did it for any kind of school dress-up day, and also friends' dress-up parties, and sometimes just when he was sitting at home watching TV. He even had a proper stretcho uniform that his grandfather helped him make. It was a brown puffy jacket with a round metal helmet and a floppy rubber arm that could stretch and stretch and stretch for ages. The rubber arm looked really cool when it was stretching and a little weird when it was hanging by his side, a bit like a thick floppy garden hose with fingers on the end. Whenever Batty wore his stretcho uniform, he felt powerful and brave and strong, even though he wasn't really like that at all. He was kind of shy and skinny and scared of lots of things. Yes, he was even scared of cotton wool. He didn't like the feel of cotton wool. It made him go, "Ugh, yuck." But today, dressed as Stretcho the Magnificent, he felt completely fearless and ready to do some good superhero deeds. At the start of Little Lunch, he headed straight for Stretcho's secret headquarters, the old shelter shed near the Oval. Then he stood on the bench and scanned the schoolyard, looking for innocent people who needed to be saved, or evil supervillains who needed to be defeated. Aha! An evil supervillain was passing right now. It was Rory in his scientist Lollipop Man outfit. Stretcho leaped in front of him, holding out his stretchy arm. "Stop, evil scientist! It falls upon me to defend our city from your apocalyptic intentions." Rory just stood there. He didn't understand a word Batty had said. "I'll ask again," said Batty. "Will you relinquish the ballistic sonic ray blaster?" Rory shrugged. Who was Ray Blaster? Something caught Batty's attention near the taps. He said, "Excuse me, evil scientist. We will have to finish this battle another time. Someone is in trouble and it could be a catastrophe." Sprinting across the playground at super stretcho speed, Batty arrived at the taps where Melanie was filling up her water bottle. "Hey there, waitress! Stop!" he shouted in his brave superhero voice. "An evil scientist has contaminated this water with radioactive filtration." "I'm not a waitress," Melanie snapped. "I'm a vet, can't you see?" Pondered Batty, tapping his chin with his stretcho hand. "Or are you a waitress who's inhaled radioactive fumes and you've been brainwashed into thinking you're a vet? In which case, I must save you!" He grabbed her water bottle and he stretched her hand, but Melanie held tight. "Oh, let go! I need to fill up my water bottle so I can give Rudy a drink." Batty pulled harder, the arm stretching longer. "No, waitress, wait! I have to save you from danger!" "No, you don't!" Melanie yanked her water bottle away from his rubber fingers. "And I'm not a waitress, I'm a vet!" She stormed off towards the school gate with her water bottle. Batty stood and watched her go, his rubber arm dangling by his side. But he didn't have to stand there for long. Someone else needed help over on the monkey bars. Tamara was hanging upside down from her knees, enjoying the view. She'd been hanging like that since the start of Little Lunch, lifting her head up every 30 seconds to stop all the blood from rushing to her brain. She timed it exactly, using her dad's watch. Batty's face appeared before her. "Don't move, Tamara! Stretcher will save you!" He wrapped his stretchy arm around and around her head. "Now tell me, who did this to you? Who suspended you above the vat of poisonous snakes?" "What snakes?" said Tamara, wriggling her head free, trying to see if there were any snakes down below. "No time for questions," said Batty. "The time delay will go off in exactly 78 seconds, and you will plunge into the snake vat. Can't you hear the ticking?" Oh, that's my dad's watch." Tamara waved her watch in Batty's face. "He let me borrow it because that's what I'm going to be when I grow up, a world champion athlete with a sponsorship deal." Batty was getting frustrated. "Come on, Tamara, can you just pretend that there's a detonator machine about to go off and I need to save you?" Tamara squeezed her head free from his rubber arm, flipped herself right way up and sat sideways on the top of the monkey bars. "I've got a better game, Batty. You can watch me do my athlete's press conference." She pretended there were TV cameras filming her. Then she smiled and said, "Well, I felt great in the lead up to the race. I tried to stay focused. I really dug deep. I came here to defend my title, and I really felt I delivered it today." She smiled a gold-winning smile and winked at the cameras. Batty wasn't watching, though. He'd spotted someone else who needed help, and there was no time to waste. Sitting on a school step, Deborah Jo was drawing a picture with texters. Batty raced over and jumped in front of her, knocking her hand with his shoe, making her scrawl texter ink across the middle of the page. "Don't worry, Doctor," he said in his brave superhero voice. "Stretcher is here. I will stop you from falling off the edge of this dangerous skyscraper." Deborah Jo shrieked. "Batty, look! You wrecked my picture!" "Do I jump on you when you're making a sculpture out of sticks? No. Do I jump on you when you're laying out your sultanas in a pattern? No. Do I jump on you when you're doing that creepy face and talking to a tree? No. So don't jump on me!" She grabbed all of her coloured textures, picked up her ruined picture, scowled at it for a minute, then stomped off. Feeling unwanted, Batty shuffled back to Stretcher's secret headquarters and slumped on the bench. The trouble with playing imaginary superhero games with his friends is that they didn't always think the same as him. Maybe he should just play his imaginary superhero games all by himself. He sat and he thought, and he began to create a new story starring Stretcher. He had an excellent idea. It was about Stretcher when he was a baby, how Stretcher was born in a hospital, and in the same hospital there was a killer virus. "Batty?" Deborah Jo popped her head into Stretcher's secret headquarters, breaking his train of thought. "Listen, I'm sorry for yelling at you before. It's just a picture, and I shouldn't have gotten so mad about it." "Oh, that's okay," said Batty. "Sorry for wrecking your art." Deborah Jo was pleased that he had said that. "Yes," she said, walking away. "It is art. Thank you for noticing." When she'd gone, Batty took a deep breath and tried to re-enter the imaginary world of his superhero. "Okay, so somehow the killer virus got into the hospital air conditioning duct and it—" "Hi, Batty!" Melanie sat down next to him. "Sorry for getting mad at you at the taps. I mean, you were pretty ridiculous thinking I was a waitress, but still, I shouldn't have shouted at you. I'm sorry." "Yeah, that's okay," said Batty. "What are you doing?" "I'm just thinking." "Want to do something?" "Nah, not really," said Batty. Melanie shrugged, stood up, and left. Now back to the story. The killer virus travelled through the air conditioning duct all the way to the room where the baby Stretcho was sleeping, and then, "Hey, Batty!" Tamara had come over. "Let's see who's the fastest in a race, Stretcho or the world champion athlete with a sponsorship deal?" "Well, actually, I'm a little bit busy, Tamara. I'm thinking up a story in my head." "Cool, what's it about?" "It's about Stretcho the Magnificent." "Cool, so what happens?" "Well, it starts when Stretcho is born in a hospital, and there's a—" "Cool! Do you want to watch me do some cartwheels?" Before he would answer, she started doing cartwheels in front of him, one after the other, after another, until she cartwheeled off into the distance and he couldn't see her any more. What was going on? When he wanted to play with his friends, no one wanted to join in on the game. When he sat still by himself, they wouldn't leave him alone. Batty closed his eyes to concentrate and tried to get back to his story. Okay, so one tiny little drop of killer virus dribbled out of the air conditioning duct and dribbled onto Stretcho's arm. It was too tiny to kill him, but it did something else. It turned his arm into a powerful, amazing, stretchy... What was that? Something furry touched Batty's leg. At first he thought it might be Rory, but when he opened his eyes and looked down, it wasn't Rory at all. It was a dog. It was Melanie's dog. Melanie was supposed to tie her dog up outside the school grounds. Somehow the dog must have gotten free and was now sitting at Batty's feet, looking up at him with his cute doggy face blinking its cute little doggy eyes. Batty was scared of lots of things, but most of all, he was scared of dogs, even cute ones with furry, waggly little tails. He peeked down at the little dog. He tried to be brave. He tried to be fearless. He reminded himself that he was Stretcho the Magnificent, and he wasn't scared of anything. And then the dog jumped up on his lap. "Oh, help! Somebody, a dog, help!" Batty's screams were so loud, kids across the playground turned to look. Flocks of birds flew out of the trees. Mrs. Goncha even heard him from the staff room on the other side of the school, with the windows closed. "Help, a dog! Somebody's a dog!" "That's Batty," thought Mrs. Goncha, "and it sounds like he's in big trouble." She immediately raced out of the staff room, down the corridor, out the main doors and across the playgrounds, both junior and senior playgrounds. She found Batty in the shelter shed with the dog on his lap, shaking in fear and holding a Stretcho arm over his face for protection. "It's all right, Batty, it's all right," she said, lifting the dog off his lap. "He won't hurt you. It's just a dog." Mrs. Goncha bravely carried the dog away. She, Mrs. Goncha, was a true superhero. She was Mrs. Super Goncha. When Batty was completely sure that the dog was all gone, he peered out from behind the Stretcho arm. Okay, so he was definitely not as brave and as strong and as powerful as he'd like to be. But that's all right. Every superhero had something they were scared of. Stretcho just had a few more things than most. Crabs, moths, bees, needles, dogs, cotton wool escalators, snake cats, deep water, shallow water, and knees. Yes, you heard right, even knees. Sometimes they looked like scary little faces. Just a little bit too scary for Stretcho the Magnificent. We hope that you enjoyed this audiobook production, read to you by Ingrid Staebe for StoryZone.